Hey, Facebook land. My name is Rebecca, and I help with the Voting in Montana page because I love elections. And I'm here today with Audrey, the Lewis and Clark County Elections Supervisor. And this is the time of year where less than 30 days away from a huge election, and there's lots of questions that voters have, such as, am I registered? Where should I register? Is my ballot coming to me in the mail? There's all kinds of great stuff. So we're going to talk about it today. So thanks for being here, Audrey.
Thanks for coming.
She was really, really busy when I came in today, so I really appreciate her taking the time to chat with all of our viewers about all of your big voting questions. So let's talk about the third-party mailing. What happened there? What's going on with that?
There's a big mailing that went out by a group. It says on the envelopes, paid for by New American Jobs Fund. What confused people is they put in one of their mailings, state records say you're not an absentee voter. And that wasn't true for a lot of voters. A lot of voters who got that mailing were already set to have their ballot mailed to them. They sent with their mailing a new absentee application. That's a totally legitimate application. Third parties can do that. But if you're already signed up for absentee ballots, you don't have to send us another application. That group sent out 3 mailings, so some people got 3 absentee applications.
Oh my gosh.
So the first one they thought, I think I'm already set up, but then when they got a second and third, they thought they had to send it in. If you're not sure if you're absentee, call your election office or go online and you can check that yourself.
Yeah, and so if you go online, where should you go?
If you go online, you go to myvoterpagemt.com. And when you get to that site, I have a little print-off sheet.
Ooh.
If you are an absentee voter, you'll have this blue absentee ballot tracking box when you go to that website. If you're not an absentee voter, you'll just see a little map with your polling place there.
Oh, good. Nice. So that's up to date. That's live. You don't have to, that's not like old information.
That gets refreshed, I think, daily. So you might be a day behind if you check that site, but it's pretty up to date.
Nice. Okay, so myvoterpagemt.com, and you can check out if you're getting a ballot in the mail. So ballots have not gone out yet.
Right.
And so we use the words absentee and vote by mail in Montana, and they're interchangeable. Absentee is essentially you're not present at your polling place on election day. And so that's your official ballot, so you have either getting your official ballot in the mail or you're getting it at your polling place on election day. And so you have to be registered 30 days in advance to be able to go to your polling place on election day. So if you're on the absentee list or the vote by mail list, those ballots are going out
this Friday. So everybody who's signed up for absentee ballots, everybody who signs up today and tomorrow, we're mailing all those ballots out this Friday. In our local area around Helena, usually those ballots hit doorsteps within 1 to 3 days. I think across the state, if you don't have your ballot within a week, that's when you want to contact your office and make sure it went to the right address and see if there's anything that needs to be updated.
Yeah, anything out of state it goes first class, but it takes a little longer. It can take 7 to 10 days. Is that about right?
Yeah, for out of state, I would give it a week and a half to 2 weeks before you start to get really worried. But you can always call your office and check the address it went to make sure it is on its way to you.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And so if voters are on that absentee list, they should wait until that ballot comes in the mail. But if you're leaving early, let's say something came up or you're a snowbird leaving early and you're going to have your P.O. box not open right, you should probably go to your elections office and talk to them about coordinating that or getting a ballot early. There's ways that you can grab that ballot. And so we also want to talk about late registration.
Mm-hmm.
Oof. So Montana is one of 11 states that does the late registration process. So if most states require you to register 30 days in advance, and some states, if you miss that 30-day deadline, you're out of luck. In Montana, we have late registration where you can appear in person at your local elections office, register, update your voter information, and you can get a ballot at the same time. It's pretty slick. So you can't send in a voter registration form in the mail anymore.
Right. If you mail in a voter registration form at this point, it's too late for this election. Mm-hmm. So you could still get registered for all future elections. But if you want to vote in November and you're not registered yet, your option now is to come in person.
Right.
But that's the hardest thing, is coming in person. It's a very simple form. Mm-hmm. You don't have to bring documentation with you. We just ask you to write down an ID number on that form, either your state ID or the last 4 of your social security. So that's all you really need for that.
Yeah, and it's pretty quick process. And this is a big election. We have some big names on the ballot, big seats on the ballot. So we always recommend come in early. Do this late registration process early. So you can do it up until the day before the election. At noon, there's a cutoff.
Right.
And so then it reopens on election day, and it's also known as same-day voter registration. That is open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. when polls close, but I would expect lines.
Right. In our office, we have, when we open this week, we have short lines, maybe 5 to 10 minutes tops is how long you'll spend here. Then it kind of slows down and you're served almost when you walk in. Then kind of the Thursday, Friday before the election is when we start to see the lines get a little longer. On election day, we'll see the lines a little longer. So you don't wait if you want to avoid the lines.
Right, yeah, come early. It's an easy process. And if you know who you want to vote for, you can mark your ballot and drop it off and get it done with. Or you can hang on to it and see how those headlines pan out. And you have the option to drop it off on election day too. But
right.
That's the words of wisdom from the election officials. Come and do it early. We want you to have a good experience too. We don't want you to have to suffer in line and wait. How many absentee ballots are you sending out?
In our county, we're going to send out close to 26,000.
26,000. Is that a new record?
That's a good question. I think we ended up sending out more in the presidential election, but for mailing out, the first day we mail out, it tends to be higher and higher every election.
Gotcha.
More and more people using that option.
And I know Missoula County and Yellowstone County both have multiple page ballots. Do you have a multiple page ballot?
We don't. We have one page of our ballot. It is a front and a back. But I know there's a lot of counties for this election with the ballot issues that will have 2 sheets of paper for their ballots.
Right, and so there's probably a lot of ballot issues on this ballot, maybe county, but especially statewide. Voters can use the voter information pamphlet, right?
Right. So you should have gotten that mailed to you probably sometime in the last week, a voter information pamphlet. It will have the text of those state ballot issues, and it'll have arguments for and against those ballot issues. Mm-hmm. Local issues usually are not included in there, but you can read up on the state issues there.
And candidates are not in there either.
Right. We don't have information on candidates.
No. And so in your office, I saw the Helena Independent Record. They did a kind of a candidate guide, and I know in the past we've always recommended going to your local newspaper to see if they've covered any candidates, and that's probably still the recommendation to, either Google search about candidates, see if you can find their websites or their Facebook pages, or look in that local newspaper and see if they have a guide, but you won't find that in the voter information pamphlet.
Yeah, no, the county election offices, since we put on the election, we unfortunately can't put together information on the candidates because we don't want to look like we're for or against any specific candidates. Mm-hmm. But local newspapers are usually a good resource. We'll put together guides like our area does. Mm-hmm. And then getting online is another great way to find more information.
I know, there's so much out there. Anybody have any questions out there? Anything else we need to cover? Oh, your envelopes.
The one thing I was going to show to people that a lot of elections offices are using now is this official election mail logo. So when we were talking about mailings coming from third-party groups, only your official elections offices can be using this logo. So it's a great way to identify your ballot coming or any communication from your elections office, mm-hmm. and how to tell that apart from something that a third-party group is mailing.
Right, absolutely.
The other, of course, important thing for anybody who's voting an absentee ballot, and that's whether you come to the office to get it or have it mailed to you, is to remember to sign your envelope. Mm-hmm. These envelopes look a little different from county to county, but they will always have a voter's affirmation and a place for you to sign.
Right, and in that essentially says you are the person signing that ballot. It's basically saying, I am the one who this ballot was issued to, this is my ballot, and this is my signature. So husband and wives, watch those signature swaps, or roommates. Make sure you have the right envelope that you're signing, because what happens if a signature is not accepted?
If the signature doesn't match what we have on file for you as your signature, so based on when you registered to vote and filled out any other forms, mm-hmm. If that doesn't match, we will call this ballot rejected. You do have an opportunity to resolve that. So we'll call you or send you a letter And if you provide ID and a new signature, we can still count the ballot. But I kind of think of the signatures as ID. So when you go to the polling place, you show photo ID to vote. Since you're voting by mail and not coming in and showing ID, you're giving us your signature. That's our way to ID that it was you who got that ballot and voted that ballot.
Gotcha. Okay. And so let's say you get your absentee ballot in the mail, it's voted. What are the ways that you can return it?
You can mail your ballot back in. Statewide for Montana, the post office recommends mailing it a week before. You can check with your local post office to see what they recommend, but try to mail it a week before. You can also drop it off in person at your county elections office. And then on election day, at any polling place in your county, you can drop it off there.
Okay.
So if you haven't turned it in yet, and you don't, you live farther away from your county office, but there's a rural polling place closer to you, you can drop it off there.
Right. So those are the recommended. What if you have somebody, and we saw this in the past, people go knocking door to door. What's the recommendation? What's the guide of whether to give your ballot to them or not?
Remember, it's your vote and it's your ballot. So I would not turn this over to anybody you don't trust to turn that vote in for you.
Right.
So if a political group is coming around and says they'll turn in your ballot, if you know that group, if you trust that group, you can do that and you can follow up with us to make sure we received it.
Right.
But generally, I would take this as my vote and I'm responsible for getting this vote in.
Right. That's definitely a good and sound advice. And you can track the progress of how that's making it back, of whether the office has received it or not, through the My Voter page, which is myvoterpagemt.com.
Right.
Did I say it right? Yes. Yeah. So that's very important as well. And on there they have sample ballots.
They do. They have sample ballots. So if you're anxious and you know your ballot's coming sometime next week, but you want to think about your choices this weekend when you're at home, you can view the sample ballot. You can print it out. We know some voters who get a sample ballot and pre-mark it and then kind of use it as a cheat sheet either at the polling place or when they do their absentee.
Yeah.
Kind of helps you maybe make a list of the ones you still want to research and go from there.
Yeah. Awesome. Good information. I think we covered a lot today. We'll probably do one more video before Election Day. But everybody, happy voting. I know everybody's probably ready to get their ballot and get it done, and then hoping to turn off those political ads.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we always heard is, now that I turn my ballot in, the ads will stop, right?
Right, and I think that's the biggest incentive for voting early, but some people want to wait till Election Day, and that's okay too.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. We will be back at some point. And again, thank you to Audrey for taking time out of her crazy busy schedule to be with us today.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks.